You checked your phone again. Not because you had to, not because anything important was happening, but because your hand moved on its own. It's automatic now. You unlock the screen, open the same conversation, and stare at it, even though you already know what you're going to see. Nothing. No message. No notification. Just silence. And still, you don't close it right away. You pause there for a few seconds longer than you should, like something might appear if you just wait. Then your mind starts filling the gap. Maybe she's busy. Maybe she didn't see it. Maybe she saw it and hasn't replied yet. You build explanations to make the silence feel lighter, easier to accept. You lock your phone and put it down, telling yourself you're done checking. You try to move on, focus on something else, pretend it doesn't matter. But your mind doesn't move with you. It stays there, in that conversation, in that silence. It keeps pulling you back. You replay the last message you sent. You read it again in your head. You start analyzing it. Was it too much? Too dry? Too eager? Should you have said less? Should you have waited longer before replying? Now you're not just waiting. You're overthinking. You check the time. 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. Time starts to matter in a way it shouldn't. Not your time, her response time. And that's what bothers you. Not just the silence, but your reaction to it. Because deep down, you know this isn't who you're supposed to be. You weren't always like this. There was a time when your attention wasn't tied to a notification, when your day didn't pause for someone else's reply, when you had things to build, things to focus on that actually mattered. You had control. Now you're waiting. And waiting shifts something in you. It pulls your focus away from your life and places it on something you can't control. You try to ignore it, but it stays. That quiet tension in your chest, that small drop every time you check and see nothing. That constant pull to check again, just one more time. And every time you do, you reinforce it. You make it stronger. You teach your mind that this matters. Now it's not just a message, it's attention, it's validation, it's confirmation that you're not being ignored. And once you attach those things to something external, you start depending on it without realizing it. That's when control starts slipping. Not all at once, but slowly, one check at a time. You sit down to do something important, something that actually moves your life forward, but your attention doesn't stay there. It drifts. Back to your phone. Back to that conversation. Back to that silence. Because now, that silence feels louder than everything else. And that's the part that hits you. Not her. Not the situation. But the realization that something this small has this much control over you. You don't say it out loud. You don't admit it. But you feel it. That quiet frustration in the background. That awareness that something is off. That you're not operating at your level. And even with that awareness, you still check again. Because at this point, it's not about her reply anymore. It's about what you've allowed it to become. It was never about her. You keep telling yourself it's about her. That her reply is what matters. That her timing is what's creating this tension. That if she just responded, everything would feel normal again. But if you slow down for a second, if you stop trying to justify it and just watch what's happening, you start to see something uncomfortable. It's not really about her. Because if it was just a message, it wouldn't affect you like this. You wouldn't think about it this much. You wouldn't keep going back to it. A message is simple. It either comes or it doesn't. But to you, it's not simple anymore. It's become something else, something heavier. It's become meaning. Her reply isn't just a reply. It's confirmation. It's attention. It's proof that you're not being ignored. And once something starts representing those things, it stops being small. Now it has weight. Now it has power. And the moment something has power over how you feel, you start losing control. That's why you keep checking. Not because you're curious, but because you're hoping. Hoping that when you open your phone, something will be there that changes how you feel. Something that removes that tension sitting in your chest. Something that gives you that quick moment of relief. And when it's not there, you feel it. That small drop. That quiet disappointment you don't even react to. You just absorb it. And then, without thinking, you check again. Because maybe this time will be different. That's the loop. You're not checking your phone anymore. You're chasing a feeling. Every time you check, your brain expects something. A reward, a response, a shift. And even when it doesn't get it, the expectation stays. That's what keeps you hooked. Not logic, pattern. Your brain learns fast. It connects that action with a possible reward. And once that connection is built, it keeps pulling you back. Now it's automatic. You don't decide to check your phone. Your mind decides for you. Because somewhere along the way, you taught it that this matters. That this is worth your attention. That this is something you should keep coming back to. And the more you repeat it, the stronger it gets. What started as a moment of curiosity has turned into a habit, then into a reflex. Now it runs in the background of your day, pulling your attention without asking for permission. That's why it's hard to stop. Not because you lack discipline, but because you've attached too much to it. You've made something simple feel important. You've given it meaning it was never supposed to carry. And while you're caught in that loop, everything else starts fading. Your focus weakens. Your attention breaks faster. You sit down to do something that actually matters, something that moves your life forward, and your mind drifts. Back to your phone, back to that conversation, back to that silence. Because now, that silence feels louder than everything else. That's the real problem. Not the waiting, but what the waiting is doing to you. It's pulling your attention away from your life, piece by piece. And wherever your attention goes, your energy follows. Right now, your energy is going in the wrong direction. You're feeding something that gives you nothing in return. You're investing time into something that doesn't build anything. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it becomes to pull yourself out. Because now, it's not just a habit. It's something you've tied your emotions to. And that's why it feels so hard to let go. Not because of her, but because of what you've made this mean. This is why you can't stop. At this point, you already know something is off. You're aware of it. You've caught yourself checking your phone too many times. You've felt that tension. You've noticed how your focus keeps breaking. And yet, you still do it. That's the part that confuses you. Because if you can see it, if you understand it, why can't you stop? Because this isn't about awareness anymore. It's about attachment. Somewhere along the way, you didn't just start waiting for a reply. You started attaching your state to it. You made something small, carry something big. Her message became more than just words on a screen. It became a signal that you're wanted, a signal that you're not being ignored, a signal that you matter in that moment. And once your mind links those feelings to something external, it starts depending on it. Not in a loud way, not in a way you would admit, but quietly, subtly. It shifts your baseline. Now you don't feel completely steady on your own. There's always that small gap, that slight tension waiting to be filled. That's why you keep going back. Not because you don't have anything better to do, but because your mind has learned that this is where relief comes from. Even if that relief is temporary, even if it only lasts a few seconds, it's enough. Enough to keep the cycle alive. And the more you repeat that cycle, the deeper it gets wired. Now it's not just a habit, it's a dependency loop. You feel a little off, you check your phone. You feel a little uncertain, you check again. You feel that silence, that space, that lack of response, and your instinct is to close it as fast as possible by looking for something, anything. Because sitting with it feels uncomfortable, so you avoid the discomfort. But every time you avoid it, you make it stronger. Because now, your mind learns something dangerous. It learns that you don't handle uncertainty. You escape it. You don't sit with the silence. You chase something to fill it. And that pattern doesn't stay limited to this situation. It starts showing up everywhere. You start avoiding deeper focus. You start avoiding anything that requires patience. You start reaching for quick distractions the moment something feels slightly uncomfortable. Your attention becomes weaker. Your discipline becomes inconsistent. And your ability to stay locked in starts fading. Not because you don't have it, but because you're not using it. Instead, you're training yourself to react, to check, to chase, to wait. And slowly, without realizing it, you become someone who depends on external signals to feel okay. Your mood starts shifting based on things you don't control. A reply comes, you feel good. It doesn't come, you feel off. That's the shift. That's where control leaves your hands. And that's why you can't stop. Because now, it's not just behavior, it's identity. You've started becoming the person who waits, the person who checks, the person who reacts instead of deciding. And once that identity settles in, even slightly, it becomes harder to break out of it. Because now, every action reinforces it. You check your phone again, and it confirms it. You lose focus again, and it confirms it. You tell yourself you'll stop, and then you don't, and it confirms it again. That's how it builds. Quietly, repeatedly. Until one day, you realize you're not just dealing with a habit anymore. You're dealing with a version of yourself you don't respect. And that realization is what hits the hardest. Because now, it's not about her, not about the message, not about the timing. It's about you and what you've allowed yourself to become. Take your control back. At some point, you have to stop pretending this is small, because it isn't. It looks small from the outside, just a message, just a phone, just a moment of checking something quickly. But you know that's not what it feels like. You know what's happening underneath it. You know how it's affecting your focus, your energy, your mood, your sense of control. And if you're honest with yourself, the problem isn't that you checked your phone. The problem is that you keep giving something this small the power to control you. That's what has to change, not her behavior, not the situation, you. Because the moment you stop waiting for things outside of you to settle your mind, everything shifts. But that doesn't happen automatically. It doesn't happen because you decide once, and suddenly everything feels different. It happens when you do something most people avoid. You sit with the discomfort. You stop reaching for your phone the moment that feeling hits. You stop trying to escape that tension. You let it stay there for a second. You let your mind feel that urge to check, and you don't move. And it feels uncomfortable. It feels wrong. It feels like something is missing. That's the point, because for the first time, you're not feeding the pattern. You're breaking it. And breaking it doesn't feel good at first. It feels like resistance. It feels like you're going against something your mind has gotten used to. But every time you hold that line, even for a few seconds longer than before, something changes. You start realizing that the urge doesn't control you. You start realizing that the feeling passes. You start realizing that you don't need that message to feel okay. And that's where control starts coming back. Not all at once, but slowly. You begin to create space between the impulse and the action. Before, it was instant. Now, there's a pause. And in that pause, you have a choice. You can check again. or you can let it go. And every time you choose not to check, you take a small piece of your attention back. That attention is everything, because wherever your attention goes, your life follows. For too long, you've been placing it in the wrong place, waiting, checking, reacting. Now you redirect it, back to yourself, back to what actually matters, back to the things that build something real. You sit down to work, and your mind drifts again. That's fine. You catch it, you bring it back. Not perfectly, not consistently at first, but intentionally. You start training your focus again the same way you trained the habit before, through repetition. You stop expecting it to feel easy. You stop expecting instant change. You just keep showing up. And slowly, the pattern starts breaking. The urge becomes weaker. The checking becomes less frequent. The waiting loses its weight. And something else starts replacing it. Clarity. You start seeing the situation for what it is. A message. That's it. Not validation. Not confirmation. Not something that decides how you feel. Just a message. And once you see it that way, it loses its power. You're no longer tied to it. You're no longer reacting to it. You're no longer waiting on it. You send it, and you move on. Not as a strategy, not to prove a point, but because you have something better to focus on. Something real, something that builds. That's the difference. That's the shift. You go from someone who waits to someone who moves, from someone who reacts to someone who decides, from someone who checks to someone who controls. And once you feel that shift, even once, you don't want to go back. Because now you remember what it feels like to be in control again. And that feeling is stronger than any reply, stronger than any notification, stronger than anything you were chasing before. That's where it ends. Not with her message, but with you taking your control back. Stop checking your phone. Start checking yourself. Because the moment you control your attention, you control your life. Most men will watch this and do nothing. A few will act. If you're one of them, then like, share, and subscribe. This channel is for men who are done being average. If you felt this, you already know why you're here.